To multiply integers. Let's look at our number routine today. How do you know? How do you know that negative 8 minus 5 is equivalent to negative 8 plus negative 5? How do you know this thing? Well, we could several ways. You can use something called add the opposite. So I keep negative 8. I add, and what's the opposite of 5? Negative 5. And it equals to negative 13. So that's one way, so they are equivalent. You could draw a picture on a number line. This goes back 8 spaces, and then it goes back 5 more spaces to negative 13. So you're starting at 0, you go back 8 units, then go back 5 units to negative 13. And what is negative 8 plus negative 5? Also negative 13. Also, you could draw it out if you wanted to. Where's my pen? I have 8 negatives. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. That's what I start out with. I need to take away 5 positives from this. However, I don't have any positive to take out from. So I need to draw 0 pairs. I need to draw 5 0 pairs. So let me draw 5 0 pairs. Now I can take out 5 of the positives. So if I take out 5 of the positives, this, what do I have left? I started with negative 8. I added 5 negatives to it. So negative 8 plus negative 5 equals negative 13. That proves why add the opposite works. So let's look at our let's look at our do now for today. The average temperature in Calgary is 22 degrees in July. Oh, sorry, 22 degrees Celsius in July, and negative 11 degrees Celsius in January. Find the range or difference of the highest and lowest temperature in Calgary. So it's 22 is the high, the low is negative 11. Find the difference or the range. So we know it's minus. Let me put parentheses so it makes it easier to read. So we have 22 minus negative 11. I need to solve for this. I'm going to use add the opposite. So I start with 22. I add, what's the opposite of negative 11? 11. So the range is 33 degrees. Another way you could have seen it is this is a thermometer. This is 0 degrees, so we're at 22 degrees. So 22 is right here. Negative 11 is right here. What is the difference? Or you can also think of it as the distance from 22 to negative 11. From 22 to 0 degrees is 22 degrees difference. And from 0 to negative 11, 11. So 22 plus 11 is 33. So in multiplication of integers, I will be using yellow counters and red counters. Yellow counters will be represented by the positive, and red counters will be represented by the negative. So the expression 2 times 4 can be modeled as 2 groups of positive 4. So I get positive 4. Let me copy paste. So this is one group of positive 4, and here is a second group of positive 4. So what is 2 groups of positive 4, or 2 groups of 4, or 2 times 4? The answer, of course, is 8. So draw a model to represent each of the following expressions and give the product of the multiplication. 2 groups, 2 times 6 is 2 groups of 6. So this is my group of 6. Let's do another group of 6. And so 2 groups of 6, or 2 times 6, of course, is 12. Um, for next one, I'm not going to be modeling, but what is 3 times 5? 15. So the pattern is, what do you, and next one, 3 groups of 2 is 6, 4 groups of 3 is 12. These all represent multiplication. When a positive is multiplied by a positive, is the product a positive or negative? When you multiply two positives, you've done it since 3rd grade or 2nd grade, depending on when you learn how to multiply, it will be positive. Now, the expression 2 times negative 4 can be modeled as 2 groups of negative 4. So 2 times negative 4 is, let's do negative 4. This is one group of negative 4. Here is a second group of negative 4. So what is 2 groups of negative 4? That would be negative 8. Count. 2, 4, 6, 8, negative 8. 2 times negative 4 is negative 8. So draw a model to represent each of the following. 2 times negative 6. So that means 2 groups of negative 6. Here is our first group of negative 6. Here is our second group of negative 6. So what is 2 groups of negative 6? Negative 12. So negative 12. So what is 3 times negative 5, or 3 groups of negative 5? So I will use one more modeling. I'm going to do modeling for this one. So I have negative 5. Let me use my arrow. 1, 2, 3, 5. It said 3 groups of negative 5. Here's our second group, and here's our third group. So we have one group of negative 5, second group of negative 5, and third group of negative 5. So 3 groups of negative 5 would be negative 15. So let's see if we can do our modeling. 3 groups of negative 2, negative 2, negative 2, negative 2, negative 6. 4 groups of negative 3, negative 3, negative 3, negative 3, negative 12. So when a positive integer is multiplied by a negative, what will the product be? The product will be negative. When I multiply, because it's saying find a group of these negative. So groups of negative will be negative. Now, this is where it gets more difficult for some of us. The expression negative 2 times 4 can be thought as the opposite of 2 times 4. Remember when we saw and when we did absolute value? Let me get my pen. When we did absolute value, like negative, absolute value is 6. How far is 6? How many units is 6 from 0? 6 units. This means the opposite of 6, so it would be negative 6. Let's take that premise to help us do this. So just saying, the expression negative 2 times 4 can be thought as the opposite of 2 times 4. So, what is 2 times 4? 2 times 4 is 8. So the opposite of 2 groups of 4, opposite of 8 will be negative 8. So we have 2 groups of 4. First group of 4, second group of 4. And now we have to do the opposite. So what's the opposite of positive? Well, negative, that is. So the opposite of 2 times 4, negative 8. So draw a model represent each one. So it's saying do the opposite of 2 times 6. 2 groups of 6. So this is our first group of 6. This is our second group of 6. So it says opposite of 2 times 6. What's 2 times 6? 12. Opposite of 12 would be negative 12. Let's look at our next example. Negative 3 times 5. That's saying the opposite of 3 times 5. What's 3 times 5? 15. Opposite of 15 is negative 15. And you may have learned something called commutative property. In commutative property, negative 2 times 6 can also be rewritten as 6 times negative 2. So what is 6 groups of negative 2? Negative 12. Using commutative property, we can rewrite negative 3 times 5 as 5 times negative 3. So 5 times negative 3, or 5 groups of negative 3, is negative 15. Next one. What is the opposite of negative 3 times 2? Opposite of 3 times 2. 3 times 2 is 6, opposite of negative 6. Or you can think of it as 2 groups of negative 3, negative 6. What's the opposite of 4 times 3? 4 times 3 is 12, opposite of negative 12. Or you can rewrite this as 3 times negative 4, or 3 groups of negative 4. So when a negative integer is multiplied by a positive integer, is the product positive or negative? It will be negative, because you're doing the opposite of the positive number, which is negative. And last but not least, the expression negative 2 times negative 4 can be thought of as the opposite of 2 times negative 4. So we have 2 times negative 4. That's 2 groups of negative 4. So this is our first group of negative 4. This is our second group of negative 4. What is the opposite of negative 8? It will be 8. So opposite of 2 times negative 4, which is negative 8, is 8. So draw a model. So here it says opposite of 2 groups of negative 5. So let's show you what negative 5 looks like. 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. And so it says we need to do 2 groups of negative 5, which is negative 10. What is the opposite of negative 10? The answer would be 10. Next one. So this is the opposite of 3 times negative 5. 3 times negative 5 is negative 15. Opposite of negative 15 is 15. So opposite of 3 groups of negative 5 is negative 15. Opposite of that is 15. Next one. Opposite of 4 groups of negative 2. About 4 groups of negative 2, that's negative 2, negative 2, negative 2, negative 2, that's negative 8. Opposite of 8. Opposite of 5 groups of negative 3. What's 5 groups of negative 3? Negative 3, negative 3, negative 3, negative 3, negative 3. That's negative 15. Opposite of is 15. Have you noticed when we do an opposite of a negative, each answer is positive. What's opposite of a negative? Positive. Opposite of negative is positive. So when a negative is multiplied by negative, the answer would be positive. So write a rule for multiplying integers with the same sign. So if I multiply 2 positives, the answer would be positive. You know what? I should type this out. So when I multiply positive and positive, it will equal positive. When I multiply a negative by a negative, so it's saying, what's the opposite of a negative? It's a positive. What happens if I multiply a positive and a negative? So it's saying some groups of negatives, so it'd be negative. What happens if you multiply different signs, a negative and positive? It's saying opposite of a positive is a negative. So can we generalize this? So if the signs are the same, the answer is positive. But when the signs are different, the answer is negative. So let's practice on this. 4 times 3 is 12. 6 groups of negative 3. 6 groups of negative 3 is negative 18. 6 groups of 3 is 18, negative. Opposite of 4 times 4. What's 4 times 4? 16. Opposite of that is negative 16. And negative 7 times negative 2. Opposite of 7 times negative 2. So we can do opposite of this negative is positive. So 7 times 2 is 14. Write each repeated addition as a multiplication station. So remember, multiplication is repeated addition. So it's 2 plus 2 plus 2 plus 2 plus 2 plus 2. That is 6 groups of 2 equal 12. Negative 5 plus negative 5 plus negative 5 plus negative 5. That's 4 groups of negative 5. That will equal 4 groups of negative 5, negative 20. And now, let's write each one as repeated addition. 3 times 8 is 3 groups of 8. 8 plus 8 plus 8. 5 times negative 4 is 5 groups of negative 4. 1 group of negative 4. 2 groups of negative 4. 3 groups of negative 4. 4 groups of negative 4. 5 groups of negative 4. Even though it didn't say as the answer, it will equal negative 20. And this one will equal 24. And now let's do challenge. So in these, we're multiplying by 3 numbers, 3 integers. What's 3 times 4? 12. 12 times negative 2. What's 12 groups of negative 2? Negative 24. Negative 2 times 4. Negative 2 times 4. Well, first of all, what's the opposite of 2 times 4? 8, which is negative 8. So opposite of 2 times 4 is 8, negative 8, times negative 5. So we multiply the first pair of integers. So now, they want you to do the opposite of this negative. So we know it can be positive. 8 times 5 is 40. So opposite of 8 times negative 5, 8 groups of negative 5 is negative 4. Opposite of that is 40. Next one. Negative 3 times negative 2 times negative 4. So let's look at the first pair of numbers. So it's a opposite of 3 times negative 2. Or you can see what's the opposite of this negative, positive. 3 times 2 is 6, times negative 4. And what's 6 groups of negative 4? Negative 24. And that is the study of multiplying integers. If they both have the same sign, the answer will be positive. If both signs are different, the answer will be negative.